Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Rubin. Good morning, Dubai. And gosh, please, we are extending all of our condolences from, of course, the top of the country, losing the former president, and then, of course, for our own king, who also left this world on the 13th of July. Thank you for that announcement about the burial, which takes place later on today, 4 p.m. Hoping to see you all there. Don't know how that's going to work, but definitely. And Dr. Rubin, it was today I found out that you were a biographer for the Awujale. I didn't know that. So that is actually wonderful to hear. And then I'm sure you'll know that back in the summer of '84, he had a bit of a legal issue where there was an attempt to depose him. You're aware of that?
Yeah. I know, it's in the book.
Yes, it's in the book, right? Yeah. So I say that because the 4th of May, Friday the 4th of May, 1984, is my big sister's birthday.
Wow.
So when it turned out that the king was not to be deposed, he saw my father's mother, and he asked my father's mother where my mother was, because they all know each other. My mother was giving birth, and he said that if my mother gives birth to a boy, she should name him Adejubalo, meaning you cannot take the king away, the crown away from the king. In theme and tandem with what he'd just overcome. And he said that if my mother had a girl, he should name her Adeshewa. My big sister is called Adeshewa, named by the king. So we extend our deepest condolences to all of the people of Ijebu land. But first, let me tell you what is happening around the world now. Tributes continue to pour in across the continent in memory of former President Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari, who passed away in London on Sunday. His death has reignited concerns about his foreign policy priorities during his 8-year presidency. Now, in terms of security challenges, Buhari's regional efforts, including military cooperation with neighboring countries in order to combat Boko Haram insurgency, Nigeria did work closely also with other groups such as ECOWAS and member states within ECOWAS to address issues such as cross-border crime, trade barriers, and political instability. And in terms of oil diplomacy, Nigeria leveraged its position as a major oil producer to engage with international partners, particularly in the energy sector. Now, fighting corruption internationally was also a key tenet of Buhari's foreign policy throughout his presidency, as he sought international cooperation to recover stolen assets taken abroad and sought to prosecute corrupt individuals. Now, when we look at the appointments of Dr. Amina Mohammed, who is, of course, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, as well as Professor Tijani Bande, who is the President of the United Nations General Assembly, as well as Chief Ebeo Osuji, who we know is a judge in the ICC at The Hague, as well as, of course, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as Director General of the World Trade Organization, as well as Professor Mohamed Barkindo, who we knew was at the helm of OPEC, as well as Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, who was the president, the now immediate past president of the African Development Bank, as well as Professor Benedict Orama. There's a whole heap of Nigerians which do show a shift towards Nigeria's presence on the global scene, which can trace its way back to Buhari's leadership. Now, other gains include the mobilization of international support for this war against Boko Haram with the United States, United Kingdom, France, Germany, ECOWAS, the African Union, and the UN, leading to the sale of weapons to Nigeria and the reinvigoration of the multinational joint task force, which comprised troops from Nigeria, its neighboring countries, and the Lake Chad Basin Commission to eliminate threats such as Boko Haram, but also ISWAP. Now, Nigeria's cooperation with the governments of Switzerland, the United States, United Kingdom, and the United Arab Emirates, as well as Liechtenstein, also sought to repatriate Nigeria's stolen funds by past leaders. They're all evidence of, Buhari's pressure and, I guess, efforts to really restore Nigeria's credibility when it comes to these issues with corruption. Now, further listed were the government engagement with Nigerians in the diaspora on national issues such as the xenophobic attacks across the African continent, also in South Africa, but also Nigeria's intervention in Gambia, in Mali, in Cote d'Ivoire, and Guinea-Bissau political crises, which brought relative peace and political stability to these countries. So that it was important and pertinent for us to look at this side of President Buhari's leadership in terms of how he was able to put Nigeria on the map on the one hand, but also help quench fires, if you can call it that, across the African continent. Those are your stories. Well, that is your story before we move on to papers.
I mean, you're very apt. And we give, like I said, his legacy is mixed. We give kudos to him for that. And you know, he did it at a time where Dr. Akim Additional served in a PDP government. His APC government had just come in. But he stood his ground in support of him. And we commended him, which was brave then. Under him, we had a lot of people, you know, representing. I also remember the support he gave Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, you know. And these were stars from the same government he had criticized.
Right.
That was a bad government. The Jonathan government was a phony government and all of that. And these were some of the things about his foreign, you know, policy legacy, which we commend him for. But also, Femi, in that foreign policy legacy, we will not forget him going to say at an international platform that those that didn't vote for me will not get something.
I thought you were going to talk about the lazy Nigerian youth.
And the lazy Nigerian youth is another one. Those that give me 5% will not, you know, those are some of the things. We will not also forget things like, oh, my wife is in the other room.
Yes, when he was standing beside another woman.
So, I mean, we've had a lot of this. And most importantly, Vimba, I'm happy you brought the issue of NSAS. Still today, justice have not been done. We will not forget how they shut media, how they fined all of us. The Broadcasting Commission fined most media houses in this country for playing a video that is authenticated to be true. So we saw all that transpire during NSAS. That was not the best way to have handled it. We give him his credits. May he continue to rest. His legacy will be definitely a divisive one.
Yeah, certainly.
That's the word.
The paradox of his legacy. But in talking of, speaking of foreign policy achievements, the creation of NIDCOM, the Nigeria Diaspora Commission, I think was a major highlight for me because such a commission, you know, you don't realize the need for such a commission until it's created. And NIDCOM has done incredibly well with regards to facilitating for the return of Nigerians who've been stuck in not just with xenophobic issues, but even some who are stuck in Ukraine, stuck in Libya, stuck in various places. We've also seen some progress in line with human trafficking, and especially the cases of the young girls, usually from Edo State, who are trafficked through Libya and through various places, through prostitution rings and so forth. NIDCOM has been doing fantastic work. So in speaking about his legacy, it's always important to highlight, to call what it is, call truth what it is. Yes. And for me, NIDCOM, that was created in 2017 under President Muhammadu Buhari, is one of those iconic legacies that will certainly continue to bear fruit if we can continue to put it to good use, because we know how much the diaspora is contributing to this country, not just in their remittances. Yes. There's so many, the contribution of the diaspora goes beyond financial contribution, especially now as we are seeing the world is growing in isolation and so forth. The access that we have to our relatives in different parts of the world has become much more critical than ever in history. So for me, I just want to highlight that as, you know, it was a unique initiative, a hugely successful one, and I hope that it can be carried on and continue to grow and move forward.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, on foreign policy, I always say that the president of Nigeria is the chief foreign policy officer of the country. He's the chief image maker of the country. Now, before the return to civilian rule in 1999, we found ourselves in a situation whereby Nigeria was almost practically absent on the foreign scene. Many positions that could have come to Nigeria at a point did not come to Nigeria because Nigeria was a pariah nation as a result of June 12, military presence, and all of that. But since 1999, every president that has been there, from Obasanjo to date, has tried to make foreign policy a very important aspect of Nigeria's engagement with the world. Even if we are not fully recovered from our, failures under military rule. However, it is instructive to find that under at least two military rulers who became civilians, President Obasanjo, that tradition of making sure that Nigeria returns to the international fold has been restored. Now, if you claim that as an achievement for President Buhari, yes, it's clearly in order. The appointment of Nigerians to those positions, whether it's Benedict Rama or Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, or it is Ambassador Amina Mohammed or any other person, Buhari was not tribalistic. That's Tijani Bande. He used to be consultant to the editorial board of The Guardian. He was not, doing it through ethnic prism. He supported anybody who could, that's a boy. He was with me in the University of Calabar. He's now a judge in the International Court of Justice. Now, so he supported everybody, whether you were from the East or the West. So I think we should give him credit for that. NIDCOM, as you have pointed out, is also very important. I'm trying to rush my thoughts. However, if you look at the literature, all the literatures, whether you are reading Olajide Aluko, or you are reading Jane Escovitz, or you are reading Professor Gambari, and or Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, all the scholars within that particular space, or even our own Professor Akintenewa, what they say, which I have not seen anybody arguing with, is that domestic policy drives foreign policy. If your domestic policy does well, then you will do well in terms of foreign policy. I think an assessment of how domestic policy related to foreign policy under Buhari will be necessary. But for all of them, since 1999, the issue is that there is a need for a rethinking of Nigeria's foreign policy process. We are told that Africa is the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy process. Our presidents since 1999 have sustained that. What have we gained from supporting people in Zimbabwe, from supporting people in South Africa, from supporting people in Liberia, from supporting people in Sierra Leone, in Ghana, elsewhere? These are questions that you raise when you bring a foreign policy subject. Finally, let me say that I find it curious that two major icons in Nigeria died the same day, two friends, the Abu Jaleh and President Muhammadu Buhari, and they both died, I think, yes, we're told, abroad. Or in the case of President Buhari, at least we're specific, that he died in a London clinic.
He died at the London clinic,
okay.
in West London. That
again will draw attention to the situation of our healthcare system. When are we going to get to a stage where Nigerian presidents can die in their own land, and not that we will have to send a delegation to go and bring them from their place of death? But I don't want to go too far on that, so that I don't get accused of raising sensitive matters at a time the country is mourning.
Well, thank you all for your wonderful submissions. Let's take a look at the newspapers. As ever, we do know that today is, of course, a series of special editions. It's essentially collectible editions of Nigerian papers today. Let's, of course, lead the pack with This Day. This Day dedicates its headline, which says that a nation mourns the death of a man who gave his all to Nigeria. The picture or headline clearly showing the passing of former President Muhammadu Buhari, with an honorable mention of the death of the Awujale of Ijebu land of Basikru Kayode Adetono. We cannot leave This Day without really mentioning that despite the country being in mourning, today is July 14th. It's also the birthday of the chairman of This Day and Arise Media Group, Prince Nduka Bagbena. And let's move on very quickly to the New Telegraph. The New Telegraph's headline says that the former president passed away at a UK hospital. It was the London clinic in West London where he passed away at. The Daily Independent says President Tinubu, Nigerians, the African Union and ECOWAS mourn the former president, Buhari, amid reports that, of course, as we know, national flags will be flown at half-staff for 7 days. The Vanguard also pictures Buhari with the news of Vice President Kashim Shettima's arrival in London to accompany Buhari's body back to Nigeria ahead of his burial later today. And the Daily Sun's headline says that the curtains have fallen for both Buhari and the Awujale of Ijebuland, who both left this world on the same day. So obviously, all of our papers dedicated to the death of both of these icons.
What I'll just say is I'll just reiterate the time for the funeral of the Awujale. This is 4 p.m.
Yes.
At Ogbegba Court today in Ijebu. So all roads leads to Ijebu today to give him a befitting burial. So I'd just like to repeat the time. The time again is 4 p.m. That's when the Awujale will be buried today in Ijebu.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if you took the Daily Independent, but at the top of the
did.
Daily, you did, right? And the top of Daily Independent is talking about, there's some people who are saying, who are concerned about the presidential jet, the old one, being sold at a giveaway price. Their experts warn FG against selling presidential aircraft at giveaway price. I just wanted to put this next to a story from South Africa, where the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa attended the BRICS summit in Brazil that took place last week. And unfortunately, they say that there's been a series of issues happening with the presidential aircraft. So he had to return from Brazil on a commercial aircraft. And he said that he will be flying commercial until further notice while they figure out what the way forward is with their aircraft. And I thought that was quite, I found it to be quite profound because we don't hear that often from African leaders. There's several African leaders who would opt to rent private aircrafts for that period. Whether it means for South Africa, we don't know yet whether it means they'll buy a new aircraft or that the old one that has challenges will be refurbished. But it was just refreshing for me to read a story about a president choosing to fly with his delegation on a commercial aircraft from Rio de Janeiro to Johannesburg, South African Air. Well, let me not advertise anybody. Anyway, but you know, their national carrier has a direct flight. And I know there's also talks of Air Peace starting a direct flight to Brazil as well. But just conversations around presidents patronizing national carriers. How can we make them work? And in the meantime, how can our own heads of state fly commercial?
There is that.
Okay, just a brief comment. Having made a comment about going to a London clinic by President Muhammadu Buhari, although his spokesperson had said, oh, he has a doctor he had been using for years in the United Kingdom. The point we're making is about how to upgrade healthcare system in Nigeria so that our leaders don't have to die and we'll be sending delegation to bring them back home. As for Kabiyesi Awujale, you know, succession, chieftaincy succession in parts of Nigeria, with the exception perhaps of the Benin Kingdom, where it's by tradition, the first son, takes over automatically. In other places where there are ruling houses, there's always a lot of rancor, a lot of competition, litigation. I think
except also Ibadan, where they have a system
that's by seniority.
That works. Yeah, that's seniority that
in
works.
Ibadan, it's by seniority, by succession. Although
you have a ladder system.
Although that has also the Mogaji line. You rise through the Mogaji line to the top, either from the Balogun line or from the Otun line. That's in Ibadan. However, the point I'm trying to make is that in Ijebu land, they should make the succession process as peaceful and as rancor-free as possible. That's the best legacy that they can. The best respect that they can pay to the legacy of the Awujale Sikiru Adetono, who led that kingdom. The Ijebus, they are also a nationality. They fought the Magmon War. They fought the British. So that's how they should respect his legacy to make it seamless. Because what Oba Adetono has done is to raise the level of that office, beyond even what his own ancestors did, whether it was Billy Bua or any his grandfathers and all of that, along that line. Now, whoever is going to succeed him should be chosen through a smooth process, and we will not expect that after him There will be litigations, there will be controversies, families will be divided, and all of that. For the peace of Ijebuland, for the continued prosperity of Ijebuland, to the benefit also of the entire Ogun State, because Ogun State benefited from his leadership. Thank you.